My sweetheart, you have spent your entire life assessing yourself incorrectly. Before your feet even touch the floor when you wake up each morning, a calculation starts. To what extent did I succeed yesterday? How do I stack up against those around me? Am I lagging behind? Am I sufficient? The scale you have been using counts the things the world has taught you to count, including performance, output, approval, and tangible outcomes. You've spent years feeling like you fall short on that measure. For example, the difference between where you are and where you ought to be is a sign of a basic weakness. However, if you allow it to get to the part of you where it counts most, what I have to tell you will change everything. There is a problem with the scale. It was never intended to gauge your true value. You have been using a coin-counting scale to weigh your soul. Additionally, you believe the number rather than challenging the instrument each time it disappoints you. Something completely different is measured by my scale. It doesn't take into account what you create or what other people think of you. It weighs something that was already inside of you before you ever did anything in this world. Something that no accomplishment has enhanced and no failure has diminished. You have a value that you are unable to fully understand. Let that settle. Don't go over it too soon. Allow it to descend into the more profound areas of your mind where the old scars reside, where the voices of disappointment and rejection have accumulated over the years like furniture in a room no one uses anymore, where the old doubts have taken up residence. I want those ancient things to hear what I have to say. I want your weary parts to hear it. I don't determine your worth by looking at how you behave. The total of your achievements does not determine your worth. What other people think of you, whether they notice you, whether they pick you, or whether they stay, does not define your worth. I am the source of your value. It comes naturally to me. It was ingrained in you at the time of your creation and has been entirely yours ever since. Consider what it means to be created in my likeness. The majority of individuals have heard those statements and have simply ignored them without giving them much thought. I didn't utilize a template that has been used 1,000 times when I made you. I delved into the core of my identity. I gave you the breath of life, and part of my own nature, my creativity, my ability to love, and my capacity to imagine, feel, and make decisions are all included in one breath. Right now you have that inside of you. Something holy is present. I put that into you when I created you, not because you earned it, attained it, or applied for it. You were made to resemble the person who spoke light into darkness. The hands that extended across the sky shaped you. The same power that placed each star in its proper place and gave each one a name also gave you life. You are descended from that bloodline. No event in your life has ever been able to erase that legacy. You were made in my likeness. That mark, that holy stamp of the divine, is carried by every living human being. However, everyone bears it in a way that is uniquely their own. God's image in you is different from God's image in anyone else. Your own personality, the way your mind functions, the special kind of love you can provide, and the precise traits and desires that define who you are. All of that is a single human existence that reflects the image of God. You are the only one who can articulate it precisely, not in the generation you were born into, nor in any of the previous or upcoming generations. There is nothing else in creation like the way God is reflected in you. This implies that something divine would remain unspoken if you weren't present. There would just be a lack of something that only you can demonstrate to the world about who I am. That is not a minor issue. And this is what I want you to know about foundations. It is possible to paint a house in 1,000 various hues. It is possible to rearrange the interior furniture. It is possible to open or close the windows. The walls may be battered by storms. Neglected seasons might allow the garden to become out of control. The entire building may appear to be in decay. The paint may peel, and the roof may start to leak. However, none of those factors have any bearing on the basis. No matter what happens to everything constructed upon it, the foundation remains intact. The image of God woven into your whole being is your foundation. And that picture has never been taken down. Not by the worst season you've had, not by the years you spent wandering, not by the decisions you regret, not by the mistakes that continue to wake you during the calm times when everyone else is asleep. Not by the injuries you've sustained, not by the injuries you've caused, not throughout the extended periods of time when you were unable to sense, hear, or perceive my presence. No human person, no situation, no failure, and no voice of condemnation has the power to rob you of that image, which is still there, entire, holding and speaking of a value. I look at you with a tenderness that words cannot express. I've been seeing your attempts to determine your own value by comparing yourself to others. And every time I've made a comparison, I've wanted to grab your face in my hands and tell you to stop measuring. You're not competing. You are not created to meet the expectations of others. I expressly desired you to exist. Thus you were created as an original, purposeful, and intentional being. Not someone I put up with. Not someone who entered while I was preoccupied. Someone I picked. Someone I considered. Someone whose life I planned with love, care, and purpose that was complete before you breathed your first breath. The world assigns value based on what is apparent. How impressive your list of accomplishments appears in writing, how much you generate, how well you perform, how attractive you are, how successful you are, how financially stable you are, and how socially connected you are. The world creates complex value hierarchies and then challenges everyone to strive for a position close to the top of those hierarchies. The competition is draining, and the discrepancy between your current position and what the hierarchy believes you should be can be devastating. I am aware that you have experienced that burden. I am aware that there have been mornings when you have considered what the day would require of you while lying in bed, and the discrepancy between what was requested and what you believed you could provide seemed insurmountable. I am aware that you have measured yourself using the world's standards and found yourself wanting, and that this is one of the most painful and enduring emotions a person can experience. I want to completely demolish that measurement system. Not by telling you that you are genuinely extremely successful, that you perform rather well, or that you are admired by others. If only it were visible to you. I want to break it down on a much deeper level than that. I would like to inform you that the measurement system as a whole is flawed. The foundation of the hierarchy is flawed. You are employing a tool that was never intended to measure what truly counts when you use the world's ruler to measure yourself. You're like someone attempting to use a common tape measure to determine the ocean's depth. For the object being measured, the instrument is insufficient. Since the world only understands how to count things that have an expiration date, your value cannot be quantified because it is eternal in nature. Eternal value is not diminished. That's what it means to be immortal. Eternal things never wear out. It doesn't get weaker with time. Its value is not diminished by usage, age, or the accumulation of errors. Consider the things that are most valuable in this world. Even the unique and valuable items that collectors and appraisers look for inevitably decay. Everything in this established order is impacted by time. Even the most valuable painting will eventually deteriorate. Eventually, the most valuable jewel will be lost or destroyed. However, what I've put in you falls into a completely separate category. The worth that is ingrained in your identity as my child, the value I have given you, is eternal. It existed before time started to count down the days, and it will continue to exist long after time has passed. You are not a coincidence. The precise mix of all the elements that define who you are. It was a purposeful blend. I wish there was someone just like you. You do as a result. I had already made up my mind that you would exist before the events leading up to your birth were planned. The mechanism of your arrival was anticipated by the longing for you. Before you were created, you were desired. Every situation that ultimately made your existence possible was preceded by the desire for you to be in the world. That is the antithesis of chance. That is the most intentional way for a life to begin. Additionally, your presence here is meaningful in the most irreducible sense because your origin was intentional. Not significant in the sense that by the standards of the world, you will inevitably do great things. Meaningful in the sense that you are a part of something purposeful. Part of a design that concluded that the world needs you precisely after taking you into consideration. Take a time to reflect on the intricacy of who you are, not the superficial intricacy of your circumstances, relationships, or schedule. each of which has a deep texture of its own. The intricacy of your inner self, the layers upon layers of the person you have become as a result of all of your experiences, relationships, conversations, books, suffering and joys. The complex structure of your hopes and memories. The particular texture of your thoughts and emotions. The distinctiveness of your love for the things you cherish. Your conscience's specific calibration. The particular form of your sense of humor. The exact way you perceive beauty. You are all of that. And I am fully aware of all of that, catalogued as something more personal rather than as data, the way someone keeps the whole person they love in their heart. Not the facts, but the entire portrait. I adore you so much. I created you to be precisely who you are. And I am incredibly happy that you are the person I created you to be. Amen. Share this message with someone who needs to know that they are valued and that their value is different than what the outside world has told them. Someone in your life is currently experiencing severe self-doubt. Someone who has spent too much time believing false information. It is you who presents this message to them. If you were blessed, please type Amen in the comments. Your response uplifts everyone else who is listening if anything in these words spoke to a part of you that needed to hear it. Subscribe to ensure that you never miss what God has to say about your life, and return whenever you need a reminder. We adore you. You are appreciated. This is where you belong.